this spotlight? Okay. So to start off with food illustration, I wanted to focus on some basic fruits and vegetables. Just getting colors, shapes, textures down. And then these are usually, I guess, exchangeable. So something that you see in fruit can also be used in vegetables. Like, for example, you have the texture of Karela that can be used also as a texture of jackfruit. So things like that. If you change the color a little bit, a lot of things are similar. So I'm going to share some of the images of fruit and vegetables that I've downloaded. And we are going to use this to make clusters of fruit and vegetables. So when you're making a recipe, now again, this is all geared towards recipe illustration. Presentation of fruit and vegetables is also very important. So how would you, when you start illustrating, sometimes you just keep stuff around without thinking too much. But with today's class, you can see how composition matters. Things like these, how to create small, like the focal color is distributed all over, but this makes for a very interesting subject. Sometimes, again, focusing on a more a food item that has more contrasting or more attractive colors, even if it's a minor ingredient, makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, just placement. If you have a single item, how you can place and make it more attractive. So this is what we are going to do. In the first illustration, we just have lots of circles and ovals overlapping each other. And these will help us to create some, this is a very nice vignette starting from red, going through orange, yellow, and going into green. Gives a nice way of learning how to paint all these various fruit. There's only fruit over here. And over here, we have some deeper colors in a darker background. This might also help you to understand backgrounds. All right, so we are going to start off with sketching this. We will be making a frame, and in that we will be making these fruit and vegetables. Again, it's only fruit. So when you're making a composition from a picture like that, here's how I recommend we do it. We need some proportions for all of this. And one way to find proportion is just to measure the height of, or the longer side in terms of the shorter side. So for some reason, my square is not working. This is just an estimate. Squares and circles are the easiest things to draw because you know that the same height and the same width, or with a circle, it's just one diameter. That's finite. When we have to draw a rectangle, we have to then figure out in terms of the size of the square, how much it is. So it's not two lengths versus one width. It's just, yeah, maybe a little short. No, even this would do. So it's about 3.5, a little more than 3.5 in, no, 3.5. Short, 1/2 short. Okay, let me tell you what I'm saying over here, in case it's getting very complicated. Here is the width. This is 1 unit. And then you have 1 unit in length. This is our square. And if I were to measure from here again, that unit would be somewhere over here. So this gives us an idea of how long or short our rectangle needs to be. In this particular case today, it won't really matter. Even if a few shapes go out or you have to extend a few shapes, it doesn't matter. But trying to get proportions as accurately as possible just by eyeballing them is generally a good exercise in art. Once we do that, we will create some kind of a grid to help us position all these different fruit. Again, because there are so many of them, if you miss a few of them, if you make a few large or small, it won't really matter. But once you make a grid of all squares, you will be able to see a few key things. The bigger items need to be drawn first. So between the bottom two polygons, you have a muskmelon. In between all four of these, you have a mango. Right in the middle of this, you have a papaya. Right in the middle of this, you have another raw mango. So you see what they've done is they have distributed large elements all over, and then the small elements just fill up space. So this is just like standard uh, design. And we use the same principles. Put in the large elements first all over the place, and then fill up with the medium and then with small. So the medium are things like the oranges. Wait. You have sliced orange. And now here we also have to take into account the area that is visible. All these are medium. And the grapes and things are the small elements. Grapes, the raspberry, maybe even plums, a little bit of this fig. These are smaller ones. And of course, all these little ones over here are the small elements. So when you are drawing, don't start drawing from the top and align them all one after the other. First, you will place all the big items in the right places, and then you will draw the medium, and then you'll draw the small items. So I'm going to give you a screenshot of this, so you know what we spoke about, and then you can start work with that. We're going to do a very casual drawing and putting down color with a focus on contrast, which I want to show you. Oh, 1 second. Jasmine is still in another room. Oh, there she is. I don't know why. Okay. Okay, so if you want, you can, sorry. Just observe first and then start drawing. Now I'm going to draw very loose lines. We want the pencil lines to be visible. So don't, this is not going to be like a finished illustration. The pencil lines are for us to be able to see the progression of the sketch. This is after all just a sketch. So this is my horizontal unit, the first red line that I showed you. Jasmine,
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I saw you came in late, but
Yeah, actually, I clicked on the link which you had sent last time that we met, and there was nothing happening, so that I had to go to the previous link. I didn't know you had a new link or anything. I suggest that every time you have the class, you just paste the link once again so that we know what the latest link is. So I was just waiting here for the class, but then it seemed I was just waiting, and you had a different link.
So the link is in the group description for the Friday class.
Yeah, no, I went to the link which was in the message group, in the messages.
So that one, if there are substitute classes, then you would probably have gone to another day's class. But for this, since you asked on the group, this group, the link is always there in the description.
Okay, can you
You
catch me
don't-
up for the last 15 minutes, whatever you did, please?
Yeah. I'll show you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are making these pictures of these. I'm sorry. I have just helped break down this image. So we are making a sketch of these fruit as a cluster of fruit, and we will be painting them in a very casual style to block colors and then show contrast. I have broken this down as such, where we will draw a proportion. Just follow my instructions. So I'll be able to show you how to create a rectangle of this proportion, break it into a grid, then start off with the red circles, which are larger elements, moving on to medium, and then finally smaller elements. That's about it. Okay. All right. So we're starting off with making that rectangle first. And like I said, it's just fruit over here. So even if your rectangle is a little inaccurate, it really won't matter. So what we do is use your pencil or your finger to measure. You can always use a scale, but more often than not, when you want to illustrate, you don't have tools around. You don't want to be dependent on tools. So you can take maybe a brush or a pencil and help with this, with the help of these, you can mark the vertical and based on the horizontal. So the horizontal becomes like, it's a substitute for maybe an inch. It's 1 unit. And the height of our rectangle is 1 and a little less than 1. So maybe a quarter less than 1. So I measured 1. And then somewhere over here, I saw where I wanted to stop the next line. And I brought the line till that point. And I got some kind of rectangle. And then you have to just join the other two sides. Now draw this much lighter than I'm drawing. I'm drawing it dark so that you're able to see it. Draw a dotted line or just a dashed line for the vertical center. Now, the way we had divided this rectangle was first make the line to indicate the square on top. So not the half, not at half point of this rectangle, but what the place where we would get a square. Then we will divide this in half and take this measurement down and divide this further. I think I can extend my rectangle a little more. Now, much of this I eyeball, and I have found that in order to be able to feel easy sketching something like buildings, doing urban sketching, learning to see distances and spaces and measurements just by in proportion to elements around always is a better tool rather than carrying all sorts of paraphernalia. All right, now based on the image that I have shared, the screenshot that I shared with you last, we are going to place some of the larger elements, starting with the muskmelon at this point. Then we have another melon or something over here, just half of it. If your shapes are wonky, if some of the proportions are too large or small, don't worry about it. Then right next to the muskmelon, we have a papaya that's just in the middle of this block. Then we have a papaya here. Now, when we are drawing this, we are not looking at overlaps. We are drawing the full shape. because that is easier to draw rather than trying to manage overlaps. There's a big mango here, right in the center. There's an apple right in the center here. And there is another mango. So once you distribute some of these elements, it becomes much easier to draw everything else rather than starting from the top and drawing these, starting from, say, this apple and then this plum and so on and so forth. Just 6, 7 of these distributed all over will give you a good idea of proportion and placement. Yeah, this papaya is somewhere here. So everything that you're drawing, we're just looking at size, shape, placement, and proportion. Then we have an orange here. Then we have a lemon here. And at this point, if you can look at the original image or even the image, the screenshot that I've shared with you, you will be able to make the rest of the fruit by yourselves. And if you can look at this screen and do that together, it should be fine. Whenever we're drawing, we usually draw objects that are on top first, and the ones that they are overlapping, we draw afterwards. Here is another big mango. So this exercise is excellent in order to learn proportions and placement. So I'm going to reiterate the important points when you're sketching anything. You have to just pay attention to size, shape, placement, proportion. This is the first part in drawing. And any kind of reference image that has multiple objects is a very nice tool to learn or practice these proportions. With food, we relate to food very easily. We have seen it, touched it, we know a lot about it. So when it comes to drawing even things like buildings, which we are not really familiar with, we don't interact with buildings in that sense. A little bit of practice of these things, these items, holds you in good stead when you have to draw things like lampposts and buildings and roads and trees, because all of it, everything is just a matter of managing stuff in a grid. Now, each object has a unique shape and size, and eventually we'll see that it has its own color. I did not need to extend. So here also I want you to see that when I'm drawing, I'm holding the pencil really far away. I'm not holding the pencil near, because when you hold it too close, you make very dark lines. And also holding it close obscures your vision. So you're not seeing part of the geography of the region. The moment you change this grip, you're able to see more of the region, and then your illustrations can be even more accurate. Now, when you're drawing, sometimes you feel the need to erase. As much as I discourage erasing, of course, at some points it is necessary. So, in those cases, I recommend you should first make the corrected line and then you can use the eraser. So I have shifted my melon from the bottom here to the top. And now I need to erase these lines so that I don't get confused with those lines. Are you able to draw this? Is it coming okay? There's a beetroot also here, trying to sneak in with the fruit. I think it was allowed in only because it has an unusual color. All right, once you are comfortable, you have lots of shapes in. Before you fill this up completely, you can remove the guidelines, the vertical and horizontal guidelines, because they will definitely interfere with the painting. And now you can just use the existing fruit to finish the rest. At this point, if you feel like it, you can also switch back to the original image, because now you need more data. You need to know texture, you need to know fine details. Like some places you have a stem on certain things, you need to know that. Now, it may happen that in some places you have blank space, because obviously we are not going to be able to get 100% accuracy. So, in those cases, you can add your own fruit in those places. Like I have some blank space between the banana and the melon. I have a grape here. I have some lemon here, another grape over here, but there's a larger chasm. So I'm going to add one more grape in that place. So this is going to be an addition, but I need that space filled up. Otherwise, I have to come up with something to fill in that space. Better than coming up with your own idea, you can always just add an extra element from somewhere in the neighborhood. Now, when it comes to things like parsley, coriander, little bit of dill, shepu over here, this can be very complicated to draw. So we are just going to draw a few lines like that. I just want you to see this. Don't draw stems. What you should avoid drawing is something like that. Trying to draw it in as much detail as possible. This will just land you in a heap of trouble. So we want to indicate that there is some kind of leafy vegetable or herb over here. So just draw a few lines like this, where you can see that the sprigs of parsley have leaves. Just indicate them with lines. And then we are going to furnish more information with color. So herbs and leafy vegetables are a huge pain point when illustrating food. Coriander is the worst. Even over here, when we're drawing dill will just have longer lines. And you will draw a few consecutive lines and leave it at that. Don't do anything more. So at this point, it looks very incomplete, but trust me, it will look pretty filled up after we've colored it. Now, when we're drawing grapes as well, these grapes are round and the ones on top are all over the place. You know how grapes grow in clumps? There's usually one clump here, one clump there. So we can't draw them like when we do them in school, like something like that. And everything is overlapped by the grapes on top. Don't make them like that. See how in some places you can see the full circle of a grape, which hides the remaining grapes under it. So this is obviously one clump, and then there's another clump here. And even if you don't make it accurately as is seen in the picture, distribute the clumps logically. When you're making the grapes, also try to make them pretty much the same size. And just catch yourself if you see yourself making them like flowers or florets. So if you see that you're making the same thing over and over again like that, then it's going to look like badly made flowers. So don't do this, don't do this. Keep them more organic. We have some raspberries here. So raspberries are drawn like this. You would have, I'm just magnifying them. You will draw them as a circle, but they are actually ridged. When you see them from top, you see a ridged edge. And then you will have a ridged edge on the inside as well, but just on one side, so that when we fill it up with color, it will create a sense of 3D. So when we're drawing it here, you will just draw it like this, a circle and something like that. Just like a C shape, an angular C shape. Your circle can also be a little wobbly. That's also fine. But again, when you're making it wobbly, please don't make it like that, because this is going to look like a flower. Okay, how are we doing? Everyone okay? Any difficulties? Do you need any help?
Just a lot of empty spaces, that's it.
Okay, can I have a look?
Yeah, I mean, there's much to still do, but
Oh, okay. So you're still filling up the empty spaces.
yeah, but can you see?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, 1 second.
Should I send you a photo?
Let me see if I can pin it, and then you can also send me a photo. Okay, 1 second. So I think in some places you can increase the sizes. The
Okay.
papaya is a little small,
Hmm.
and the muskmelon can be bigger. So yeah, adjust those figures, and then if not, then maybe you can just duplicate them.
Okay.
So right next to the papaya, make another papaya, but in another direction.
Hmm.
Okay,
Okay. Okay.
like that.
Thanks.
Now, after a point, you will be able to make some details when you're sure of your outlines. Then you can make details like the shape of the seeds, seed pouch in the papaya. Then the dimple of the apple over here. And you will also be able to establish the overlapping. And here now you can gently erase some of the lines that are interfering with that overlap. When we have to block out an area for coloring, so like this, when suppose this is the cut orange over here, our natural instinct is to make the shape of the pith in the center and the pith along the edge like that. But these lines go counter to the coloring. So rather than this, what we can do is make your lines like this, which would be in the same orientation as the coloring you're going to do. And these lines then become part of the dimensions. So even over here, instead of drawing a horizontal line, draw shapes like that. A back and forth shape, maybe not zigzag, but definitely not a flat line, because that will make your picture look very graphic. So maybe what I can say is, for a graphic image, you can do it this way, but for a more natural image, make these lines almost like fences instead of drawing a horizontal line. So instead of a wall, you're making fence posts. And then when you're painting, you don't even have to erase them. They will not even interfere with your texture.
Is this how we do the kiwi? How do
Kiwi.
we? Kiwi
Um,
is,
yeah, I'm just trying to imagine the kiwi from a cut kiwi.
yeah, there are cut kiwis, two, three places. The
Oh, yeah, right there, right there.
third on the right side.
Yeah. This one is a kiwi. Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. So over here now we can also make something similar, the kiwi. Now that there is a technical issue here that the kiwi is facing us. So you want to make it look like it's been cut. This is the only fruit that has been cut into ridges. And this can be a little problematic. I would suggest don't even bother making those ridges. It's fine for the photographer, they don't have to do that. But for us, just make the seeds, because they are very, very interesting fruit any case. You don't really need to cut it to give it dimension in illustration. So we will make the seeds in a circle around the center like that, and it will just with even that, it will look like a kiwi, and it will save us a lot of heartache. Okay, shall we start painting? Is everyone ready, or do you need a minute?
I'm not ready
Need
at
a
all.
minute, need a minute.
Yeah, take your time. See, it's important to be happy with your drawing before you start painting. Otherwise, it just become a mess. We can take time. Take 10 minutes also. Don't rush through it. Painting becomes a lot easier once you've drawn everything properly. Now, while you're drawing these, go from the top to the bottom to identify the spots where you will put a highlight. Now, for the beetroot, we have a highlight here. It's very subtle, but it's there. For this fruit, which I don't think is an apple, it looks like an apple color, that's here. This apple has got a highlight over here, including in its own dimple. This, I think, is a pomegranate. This will have a very nice sharp highlight. So these places we are not going to put any paint. For the grapes also, there will be individual highlights, and it'll be very painful to paint or draw out all of them. So don't bother. When you're painting them, paint them in circles, and I'll show you how to do that. Some fruit will have no highlights at all. Some fruit will have light highlights, but we will exaggerate them. Shall we start painting? Everyone okay? Shall we begin? Yeah, more or
Yeah.
less.
Okay. Yeah.
Jasmine, how about you?
I still have white spaces, but I guess I can fill them later, you think? Can I show you?
Let me have a look. So here,
Lots of
the white space that you have over here is carrots. Over here we have, sorry, over here is more, increase the size of this fellow, and then you should be able to paint there as well. But for now, maybe what you can do, Jasmine, is just observe the painting, because that would take some time as well. And then you can do the drawing a bit later also.
cool.
Okay?
Okay.
But when you want to paint, wait till at least a major portion of the drawing is done, because unless you block the area where you are going to make a fruit, the painting won't really help. You know what I mean?
Maybe I'll finish one of the squares.
Yeah, just one area. Even if you finish, then you can paint from there. But if all of you want to just keep your pencils down and just observe, don't paint with me. Give me 5 minutes to explain how I will be painting. So we have a whole bunch of yellows in this patch, moving into oranges and reds in this patch, purple over here, and then greens over here. So it's always good to start with the lighter colors and yellow first. And often yellow is given as a base color for all warm color fruit, sometimes even green fruit. A base color, a base coat for watercolor helps in making your paintings look very fresh and very rich. If I start painting this apple with just a red color immediately, it will look very flat. So I will be painting starting with lemon yellow and then a little bit of gamboge and then throwing in orange and gamboge, orange and scarlet in places as I proceed to paint to the top. Now remember, this is a base coat. This is not the final layer. So there will be color merges all over the place. I'm going to leave a few places unpainted, and more often than not, the colors are blended. So I'm going to keep dipping into lemon yellow and gamboge to get a shade that is not exactly one or the other. This is a lemon. Here we have gamboge on the inside. So my washes are, though they are kept in separate sections, they are very um, um, they're very free. So they move from one color to the next. And I'm going to just about avoid painting the purple colored fruit and avoid painting the highlight. Our paint can go over the blank areas as well. We want the blank areas covered. And if it goes over the pink and the purple fruit also, it's not a problem. Even if it goes over some highlights, it's not theoretically a problem, but try to avoid. So what I want you to not do is hold the brush too close and try to paint too regular like that. This is going to be like paint by numbers. Press the brush down, fill up the space as much as you can as you go along. And we have pencil lines, so we will be able to see what to do beyond this as well. Now here I will take a little bit of, no, I can also do a little bit of cobalt blue and the two yellows to expand my color further. Ideally, if we do this in one shot, you'll see how these colors merge into each other. So the ultimate aim of watercolor painting is to make the painting look exciting. We are in no way competing with photography, remember that, because that is just a losing proposition. And as we come closer, we can add a little bit of green and yellow ochre. I'll tell you these colors also as we go along to fill in other shades like lemons. Kiwi will be more green, but we'll get to that later. The lemon over here will have a highlight somewhere like this. And it will also have some lemon yellow color along with gamboge. These mixing of colors makes the picture look very exciting. And for the muskmelon, we have a yellow-green, greenish yellow color as one base coat. And you can also, because it doesn't have a very pronounced highlight, you can fill the whole thing up, and then on one side, you can drop in an extra green and leave it. So this is how I'm filling up the space. The brush work is not with the tip, but by pressing it down in a few places. You press in such a way that half the brush gets pressed or the full brush gets pressed, but you try to make the painting in brief strokes and go slowly. You don't really have to rush through anything. Okay, do you want to try now? So layer by layer, these are the colors that I'm using. The first one is lemon yellow. And this is Cambodge. Just 1 second, I'm going to take a call. Sorry, that was my daughter who rarely calls. So if she's called, I often feel this, I just panic, thinking the worst. She called just to say hi. That's even more unusual.
She stays with you, na?
No, so I have moved from Aun to Bani, and
Oh, okay.
she stays at my what used to be my studio in Bani, in Aun.
In out. Okay.
Yeah. So we meet once or twice a week, but now she's in
Mhm.
college and she enjoys her independence. So
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm trying really hard not to be the typical Indian mom. Now, do, not do, actually, just observe if when you're painting, are you overdoing the painting? Because that is very typical. Whenever you're expected to just do a few brush strokes, one lands up making extra strokes over there, thinking that while it's wet, let me just make some adjustments and let me um, do more with the color. Unfortunately, that's the worst thing that you can do with watercolor, because the more you work on it while it is wet, the duller the paint becomes. I don't know the science behind it, but I have experienced it and I've been told by other artists also, is the less you work the watercolor, the better. And then allow for these things to happen where colors just merge unexpectedly. These are wonderful accidents that you want. This kind of effect, otherwise, you won't get. And you leave that in the painting. Don't try to mask it or remove it, you enhance it. So now, when we come to this fruit over here in the center, from here onwards, the colors start becoming more varied. So I'm just going to demonstrate on this one fruit how you can now build the next layer. It has a little bit of green over here and it continues to be yellow and then moves into red. So I'm going to take a little bit of that yellow and rehydrate some parts in the center. Wherever you have, I'll have a second layer, that color will become a little more intense. And into that, now I'm taking very little bit of green in this brush. The rest of the paint around this area has dried. And I'm going to drop in this color into the neighborhood to make it green, wipe my brush and equalize along the edge. Let me show you how to do the red part also before you start. So here, before I make it red, I'm going to make it orange. I'm going to insert orange into that yellow. And then I'm going to take scarlet. And just at the edge, I'm going to insert scarlet by dragging it with the orange away from the orange. So I get a nice sharp color and a sharp edge. Now, wherever we have these odd shapes, while the color is damp, the only thing you can do is wipe your brush completely and using a damp brush, just rub it along the edge to pick up excess color and to blend the existing color. Even here, I'm just going to pick up excess. Actually, I'm just going to let this be. I like how it's turned out. So this is perfectly fine. And at one stage, we'll also make a shadow. So it can work. Now, if all of this goes really weird, we can always put another layer of color if we feel the need. So there are a few fruits where there are multiple colors like that. Otherwise, at this point, we can start painting the individual fruit. So in this case now we have an apple. We'll start off with painting an orange here and then go into scarlet. So this is merging colors, painting one color into the next while it's wet. And this is helped immensely if you press the brush down. And just at the bottom, you can also use crimson. And I've made an additional highlight over there. So this color blend, I want to just show you a little bit in detail what is happening here. Um, sorry. Yeah. Color blending in watercolor is always done while the paint is still wet, but it is done very cleverly. So if let's assume I have the same kind of fruit, I'm going to show you two ways of doing color blending. I'm going to use, say, a gamboge orange mix. And see, I'm pressing the brush down so that embeds the pigment into the paper. All right. And while the paint is wet, all I can do is take a mix of, again, gamboge and scarlet, and I can drop it into the fruit like this, strategically, so that it just blends organically in the area that is still wet. If I were to try to do this where the color is dry, there's a chance that I'll just get a very sharp line like I'm getting it over here. But so long as the color is wet, I can just drop it in. Now, if I just put a dot there, it'll remain a dot. So I tend to give it some direction. Knowing that the point at which you lift the brush, a little bit of the color is left behind, you can orient your brush strokes in such a way that you want that little drop left to the side, which is on the opposite end of the highlight. Okay, this is one. Sorry, wet on wet. The next one is where I actively will insert color, but not when the whole surface is wet. So here I'm making part of the color, I'm painting part of the object. And now consistency is very important. My color is of regular consistency, not too much water, not too much pigment. And before the paint dries, wait, I'm going to repaint this so I can have, I'm pulling all the color towards this edge so that this edge is wet. And then I will, again, pressing the brush just a little bit and embed that color in. So now here the whole fruit is not wet. Layer by layer or row by row, I'm inserting the color. And I'll leave this. I'm not going to touch it. So these are the two ways, dropping color and inserting color stroke by stroke. Now, if you notice, my strokes were perpendicular to the edge that I was painting. So not sideways, but perpendicular, stroke by stroke. Okay, do you want to give it a shot? So everywhere you will be able to do the same thing. Just stop seeing it as a fruit. Just see the colors and you will be able to do this. It's just matching colors. That's what you have to do. If you feel doubtful about what color you need to make in some place, make it in rough first, somewhere in the corner of the page, but make it nicely like this and see how that color presents itself on paper. And if you are satisfied, then you can proceed to paint. So some fruit colors I'm going to make for you and show you, because otherwise you might be a little lost. The color for figs is crimson plus ultramarine. That is over here. These are the two colors, the blue in the middle and the red in the middle. If you need to make a shade that's slightly lighter, don't add white to that. Just reduce the paint in the brush and you will get a lighter shade. The shade that you make for figs is also the shade that you can use for beetroot. Now, when you're mixing these colors, just a tip. So I have a whole range of colors in my palette. When you're mixing colors, especially for the quantities that we need, just take a little bit in the tip of your brush. Oh. So, and make just a small amount like this. If you need to make any adjustment to this, then take the new color, again by the tip, and don't put it right in the middle of this puddle. Always add colors from the edge, because then you have a little bit of the original color and then all the mixes of the color in sequence. Like over here, I have one slightly reddish purple going into a bluish and either more further bluish color, and then even a blue brown purple color, and then into black. So I can use potentially this entire range of shades when I'm painting. If I were to keep adding color to the main puddle, I will only get one large puddle of one color every time. And that's a huge waste of paint. You don't really need to waste that much paint. So use the tip of your brush, take some color out, add whatever you need to the corner. Even the water is taken with just the tip of the brush. Don't dunk your entire brush into it, because then you just end up making it too liquid, and then you don't then you won't use that paint. Now here I'm going to show you how to paint these grapes. So I've taken a color that is slightly reddish or slightly redder than the fig. And each of those grapes I'm going to paint in this red color.
This
And
light red color.
it is again a mix of crimson and burnt no ultramarine blue, but I dilute it with water just a little bit. And by dilute, I mean, this is what I do. I don't take too much water, but I hydrate a small amount, so I get a lighter shade, and I'm able to then make very nuanced colors. It's the same shade as these two, but this will appear much lighter. This gives me a very nice first layer, into which then I can insert a deeper color. Again, while it's wet, if you can do it, then great, but you can always rehydrate and paint it with that. And do it in small batches. As you do this, you might run out of color. You might have to make a new color, and that new color might be slightly bluer. And that's great, because then you will have multiple colors in your grapes also, and that'll look more natural than having grapes of the same color every time, all over. So I've painted these 6 on the right, and I'm dropping in a little bit of the deeper color while they're still wet. Now, if your painting is a little too light, that means you're being cautious, and that's a good thing, because that also means that you can go over all of these one more time and make the colors more intense. If the colors are dark, that's also not a problem. You might have the color that you want might be the first color that you apply. It's in this gaggle of shades, it won't be a problem at all. All right, now I finished part of the illustration here. I'm just going to focus on this corner, because this is how we are going to paint everything else. With I'm quickly going to paint the raspberries in a crimson shade. Not even leaving, maybe one highlight I'll keep. And while this dries, there are few fruit like lychees in the backdrop, which I will paint and then paint uh, the color of the beetroot stem over that. There's some lychees here as well. So here I'm just filling a burnt sienna for lychees. And making an outline there. I can add a little bit of burnt umber wet on wet again. Just add for the shadow so that it doesn't look flat. I hope all of you have a good rag with you. I keep forgetting to ask. Maintaining the volume of water in the brush is absolutely crucial. And that can be done best with only a good rag. All right, so now mostly everything over here in this corner is filled up. So I want to show you how to make depth in this space. So if you can just give me a minute, just observe this and then try to do it yourselves. It'll help. Don't do it while I'm doing it because there are two layers to this, or even three sometimes. So at the edge of the fruit where I want a shadow, I'm going to put in a burnt umber, not a black. And you might need a very fine brush to do this so that you get a nice edge along the bright colored fruit. All the spaces that you see, you can first paint them with burnt umber. Don't put in black first because one flat black shadow does not cut it. Edge all of your fruit with a fine brush so that you get the right shape. Okay, so now you start getting depth in your picture. The more you do this, the more the colored fruit will stand out. But this is not going to be enough. So I will make a deeper shade of brown by using ultramarine blue and black in that burnt umber. So while this is my burnt umber here, the black and ultramarine will make it this deep brown color. And I will then put that color just along the edges. So that will give me a much deeper shadow. And don't again make it uniform throughout. Like I've kept a little blank space over here. I'll keep a little blank space in the burnt umber, which will give the illusion of some fruit or another underneath this space. Okay, so if this combination is wonderful even for other shadows, like the shadow inside the raspberries, make it, first you'll make it a lighter brown and then you put a dark edge along the edge closest to you. Everywhere there's a shadow, you can make it in these two colors, and suddenly your picture will stand out. So this is going to take a while, and I would suggest take your time painting this. There are multiple pictures like that where you have stacks of fruit and vegetables together. All of them can be painted pretty much the same way. After this, you could try vegetables. That should also work. And whenever you discover a new color, please make note of the shades like this. It always helps. You may not go back to the exact page to look for it, but having noted it down somewhere, you will keep it in your memory. All
Yeah.
right.
Aditi, I have to leave now.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, we're done. I'm
Yeah, okay.
going to wait for questions, doubts from anyone so I can help you out because the process would remain the same.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
see you, Barsha. Yeah.
Next class.
No, we don't have class next week. We will have it on the 15th.
Okay,
We come
sure.
out of town. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Aditi, can you share your final? I've just been watching. I've been too tired to paint.
Okay,
Been watching. So whenever you're done, so that I can just look at that picture and try to complete mine.
sure. I will send you a picture of what I've done so far also.
Okay.
Then as I proceed, I'll try and paint, maybe I can make a quick video so you can see that. And the finished picture, I'll send it also.
All right. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, I'd like to see because I'm still drawing in places and I've colored some places.
okay,
So,
okay.
so
No,
yeah,
take your
the in
time.
progress.
Take your time. This is a very slow process, but enjoy it as it goes slowly. You can watch the video also and do it, no problem. Okay, Bipasha, how are you doing?
Yeah, Aditi, can I show you?
Yes. Okay. All right. So tell me something. What colors are you using? Are they the same?
Yeah, they're the same, but yeah, somewhere it's gone dark, somewhere it's gone light. So
Yeah. Can you send a
yeah,
picture of your illustration? It's not the
yeah,
light and dark that I'm very concerned about, but it is the fact that your colors are looking a little flat. So I'm
right.
wondering whether the water quantity can change a little bit.
Yeah,
There's a possibility that you are taking very thick paint, like almost an opaque shade. So
right.
that happens when you have maybe equal quantities of water and pigment. But in order to get gradation, you need to have lesser pigment and more water.
Water.
That does not mean that your brush is full of the medium. It's just that the amount of pigment in that medium is a little less. So I can see the consistency that you've got, as in how liquid the paint is. That seems to be okay, but it's just too much pigment. So what I can suggest is maybe when you take the pigment to one corner, just add a little bit of water. See that the puddle is such that it doesn't have so much water that it is rolling about everywhere, but it is light enough. The color is light enough, so you just see a hint of the original color. And when you move the brush around, the brush moves very smoothly across it. It's not too dry. The brush doesn't feel too dry and labored when it's moving. So that will help you to get the right shade first. And then layering that will become easier because there will be some places where there'll be white, some places there'll be pigment, and then those pigments keep sitting on each other like that and creating a kaleidoscopic effect.
I'm
Right.
going to show you some of the paint that I have done.
Yes.
So, can tell me.
Nice.
So it's lemon yellow mostly,
Yeah,
and I've used the green, the top emerald green.
right. I think it's doing really well. It's going in the right direction. Very nice. This is going to look good.
Then I'll have to improvise and fill up a lot. I don't know why I have a lot of gaps. But how are we going to do those pattis? That was what I was looking forward to
Yeah,
seeing.
I'll make a video. Now I'll make a video of that separately with audio, and I'll share it separately on the group also, because that is actually, we're not going to do more than paint 2-3 layers of green on that. But what greens to paint, and then which 2-3 layers, because they're not going to be all on top of each other. If there's going to be one large layer, then there are going to be a few patches here and there, and then those patches are also going to be overlapped. So I'll make a video of that, because I don't want to spend one more class in doing the exact same thing. We'll do something more, but this part I will share a video of, so you'll have some instructions.
Great, thanks.
All right. Okay, so I guess that's it. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks now on the 15th. But this month, your batch is going to have all 4 classes, since we have the first 15, 22nd, and 29th. That's all 4 classes done. We have 5 weeks. Okay. All right.
Bye.
Chalo, I'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Bye.